And so thanks for joining us. This week, I'm very pleased to have David Hoff from the Institute for Community Inclusion join us as our guest speaker. And I'm not sure how many haven't heard of David, but he's got really a very impressive background and interest, and has been in the field for quite some time. Currently, he's the director of the Institute for Community Inclusion, the School of Global Inclusion and Social Development at the UMass in Boston. David has a track record of providing tons of trainings around employment, workforce development, and especially around people with disabilities. And he's provided training across the United States, internationally, and of course in Massachusetts. And David is also the past president of APSE, and I'm thrilled that he could join us today. So David, I am going to make you a co-host and then have you share your screen. Oops, sorry, trying to find the little thing to let me, here we go.
So while you're doing that, Kerry, I just want to say good morning, everybody, and just make sure my sound is okay.
Yep,
Okay.
Can
Okay,
hear
great.
you.
Okay.
Hear you well.
Hear me well and see me well. Okay, great. Well, good morning. It's great to be here with everybody. You have to stop sharing your screen, Kerry. I think that's the issue.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and
all right.
Okay.
All right. Stop share.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm good now. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Great. So thank you so much Kerry for having me on today. And as Kerry said, I do a lot of work here in Massachusetts as part of the staff at the Institute for Community Inclusion, as well as nationally. I've also done some international work. Most of my focus is on employment and, frankly, the concept of that people with intellectual developmental disabilities and all kinds of disabilities should work in the community like everybody else. As Kerry mentioned, I'm the past president of a national organization called the APSE, which stands for the Association of Persons Supporting Employment First. And so the idea is that employment should be a priority like all people, and a priority in the lives of people with disabilities. So on this first slide here is how you can find me at the Institute for Community Inclusion at UMass Boston. And my email is david.hoff@umb.edu. Phone these days is 617-480-9230. That's my cell, but that's the only phone I'm using right now, as I'm working off site, like most folks. And our primary website is communityinclusion.org, although we have a bunch of other projects that you might be familiar with. The one Kerry and I work on is Employment First Massachusetts and Mass Partnerships for Transition to Employment. That's employmentfirstma.org. And we have a variety of other efforts, Think College, our Think Work project, and et cetera, et cetera. So, so if you're not familiar with ICI, I encourage you to do some exploration of our projects and what we do. We have a lot of very practical information available on our main website as well as our other websites. And so speaking of practical information, that's kind of what I'm going to talk about here today. I'm going to talk about sort of our effort that we've undertaken now since early April, so coming up on 3 months, on development of resources to assist individuals, families, and service providers in responding to COVID-19, and how do we continue to support people in terms of their employment goals and dreams, and also just in their general day-to-day services, in terms of at a time of obviously significant challenge, but also, frankly, a time of significant opportunity, as we have found out. So, so the need we identified when this all started back in late March was the need for practical information to provide guidance on day and employment services. And at the urging of the Department of Developmental Services and Margaret Van Gelder at DDS specifically, she asked us to undertake an effort to develop a series of written products. And so that is what we did. And so with the support of DDS and also some additional support from another project, similar project in Missouri, Employment First Missouri, which I oversee. So we had a bunch of staff work on these products on a very rapid deadline, with me leading the charge. And so we created a series of products, started in early April. The first products were available in mid-May, and we've released several since. And we currently have 9 products posted on our website, which I will go through in a few minutes, and I'll show you exactly where they are and what they're all about, as well as a resource list. We have 8 more that are currently in production, so I'll give you a preview of some of those. And those will be posted, fingers crossed, within the next 2 weeks. And so once we get this current set of products done, we're probably going to take a pause a little bit to see kind of how the situation plays out. I think one thing that I think we could all agree on, that we are in this for the long term in terms of COVID-19, in terms of just differing ways of us all living and spending our day-to-day lives. This is not something that's going to go away by the end of the summer, unfortunately. But we also are learning a lot through this process. And I would say quite practically that there are many lessons learned, and many of the products we have developed will have a much longer shelf life, well beyond COVID-19, in terms of how to do services and support people, and how people can go about their lives in different ways, using remote services more, using technology more, thinking differently about how we just do a lot of the service delivery that we do. So, but we welcome your feedback on any of the products we produced. We still are kind of taking ideas from people in terms of possible future products. We kind of feel like we need to take a little pause for a month or 2 at least to sort of see where we're at, but we welcome kind of your feedback, etc. I would say also one of our practical strategies with this, which I said to the team from the get-go, the classic, let's not let the perfect get in the way of the good. We need to get these out quickly. Let's do our best to get high quality products. I think we've been pretty diligent with that, but they're not, we don't pretend that they were completely perfect, but we've kind of, I think, put out some really good, solid information. The feedback we've gotten has been very positive to date. So the design of these things was to create products that were very clear, very practical. These are, some of them are longer than others. Some are as short as 3 to 4 pages. Some go up to 8 to 10. But they're all online. These are all strictly online. You can print them out. But one of the advantages of the online products is we have a ton of resources embedded and at the end of the product. So there's lots of links to various resources. We really tried to focus not on lengthy text, but on lots of bullets, so you can read through them quickly. You can look at different sections. The idea is just something that you can take and grab and really apply it fairly quickly, the information that's there. We also, as I said, have resources embedded within the text oftentimes, so you're not having to flip around and say, okay, where's that thing? But, oh, by the way, check out this website, because here's some interesting information that would be helpful. And then at the end of each one, there is a list of resources as well. We have tried to emphasize very much so a curated resources. I think that one thing that was wonderful about when this all happened is that lots of people very quickly pulled together resource lists and put together lists of resources and created products like ours, because there's lots of other great products that are out there and a variety of topics. But we also found that quickly people were getting overwhelmed by the information that was out there in terms of, and frankly, I looked at some resource lists and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is more than I could ever get through. Some stuff was better than others. So what we have tried to do, both within our products, but also we have created a separate resource list, is to make sure that we're not being super redundant, that we try to kind of do some quality control in terms of what's out there. There's some, and so make sure that we're kind of getting to people to the items that can be most helpful. So, but there is a lot of folks like us who've done a lot of great work very quickly to get information out to the world, recognizing that information is so critically important during this time. What we try to do with our products is focus on an area that was not really felt being met either, that there was a need for some really practical, good, solid resources and handouts on day and employment services for people with disabilities. So that's the focus that we have had. But there's obviously a lot of other topics that are related to that. Things like how to use technology, how do you deal with all the financial impact, how do you deal with a lot of variety of additional areas that we weren't focused on, particularly with our products, but we felt like the availability of information on those things was really helpful. I would also say there's been a lot of folks doing some really wonderful work on very practical, simple information on COVID-19 and the coronavirus. A variety of self-advocates have put together some great information. So we have gathered a lot of that information as well. So, but what's interesting about that information is, while some of it was designed specifically for individuals with disabilities and self-advocates, some of it is just good, simple, practical information for everybody, because we can get caught up very quickly in sort of getting into a lot of complicated explanations. But sometimes people, simple is best. So, we should recognize that sometimes this information is created to be highly accessible is universally useful for lots and lots of us. So we've also learned a few things along the way on this, and I can certainly echo this in terms of what we've learned both through the development of these products, but also this whole experience in general, is we have learned systems and service providers can change quickly when needed to. We are all used to this. I can tell you, as somebody who's worked for systems, has worked for service providers, that we're really good at talking and contemplating and saying we need to change things and having endless meetings and discussions and let's do another white paper. But in this crisis, that systems that often take years to make funding changes and structural changes had to change things literally in days' time, and we're able to do it. And service providers, the same thing. Literally, we're told one day, you need to close your doors tomorrow, and you need to start serving people remotely and figure out how to do that on the fly. And I would say that not everything has gone well, and it's true probably of education and lots of other entities, but a lot of stuff has gone well. And I would say, we got about 80% of it right. We have also discovered massive issues in terms of the digital divide, in terms of the lack of access to technology and issues around that for lots and lots of folks. We've also obviously discovered some real challenges in terms of people's limits in terms of online services and remote services. So it's not like it's been perfect, but we've also seen that we can change things quickly. And hopefully that's some longer term lessons that we can take with us as we go along. That individuals with disabilities are incredibly resilient, incredibly adaptable, are actually able to use a lot of this technology that people said, oh, they could never use that. They could never use technology to get services. And yet, in many cases, they've shown that they are able to use it. The nice thing about a lot of technology, it's also been designed reasonably well to be intuitive and accessible. So that's been helpful. And a lot of positive feedback from some folks in terms of, yeah, we miss seeing people in person, but the ability to connect with people in different places and different states and talk to other folks and be part of support groups from afar has been really a good thing. So, there's been some positives in terms of that. I think we've learned a lot of lessons for the long term in terms of more efficient and effective service delivery. I had a service provider just a few weeks ago say, we don't want to go back to the way things were because what we were doing before was not particularly always great. We had people going to large buildings every day and hanging out, and we weren't always highly flexible in our service delivery, and we've learned that we can do this stuff in different ways when we're forced to. So as much as this has been a very challenging time, and as much as this has been for some folks a very sad time and difficult time, I think sometimes out of crises, we do find things that are just, wow, okay, new actions, new ways of doing things. And sometimes that's what it takes to spur us on. So let's get down to practicalities, like, okay, what did you do and what's it all about and all this kind of stuff. So what I'm gonna do is switch gears here. And by the way, I welcome your questions or comments as we go along. We will take some time at the end as well. So now let me just bring up that website and we'll take a look at all the wonderful products we created. So here we go. And let me know if you can't see my screen. Hopefully you're looking at our website. So the website is covid19.communityinclusion.org. That is our webpage. I'm live on the webpage right now. So we have 9 products on here. I'm just going to go quickly through each one to give you a little flavor for them. And I'm going to bring each one up and hopefully you're seeing it. So one product we wrote, the first one actually that we got out the door was on providing quality services remotely and online. So this is more about sort of remote service delivery, not about technology, but more about, and this one was created specifically for professionals. And I should say that a lot of the initial products were primarily focused for professionals, but although there's a lot in here that is of benefit to families and to individuals as well. So even though they kind of geared towards professionals. So this is about sort of how to deliver services remotely, and just has some practical guidelines. And you can see this is very similar to a lot of the products. You know, how to set things up, and how to provide guidance to individuals, and then it's resources at the end here on some series of things. So that's that product. This is a product that we've got a lot of very positive feedback. Cindy Thomas, our director, wrote this. It's fairly short, but it's about informed decision making about going to work during COVID-19, and it's really been a helpful product, people say, in terms of really walking through that process of, should somebody go to work, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And this is no different than what a lot of individuals and families have been going through during this crisis. That, yes, you can say, well, the person has a right to go to work, but if they're living with a family, or they're living with other individuals who might be vulnerable, what does that mean in terms of possible health? What if they themselves have a compromised immune system? And what kind of protections are being taken at the workplace? So this is kind of a good basic product. I think that would be helpful to lots and lots of different folks about making those decisions about about going to work and what to do to protect themselves. So that's that product. Whoops, I stopped sharing the screen there. Let's get to this again. Okay, so you should still be able to see my screen. So the next one was about the economic impact. My colleague Mary DiBiase wrote this one. This is on the whole financial stuff about calling Social Security and getting benefits and going on unemployment and health insurance and all that. So again, kind of very practical, particularly if folks have lost their jobs. I don't know what to do there. Next one. This is about providing employment services. So we had that general product about providing services remotely. This is specific, and this is a fairly lengthy one, but it's all about, okay, if you're providing employment-related services remotely, how do you do that? So it talks about how to do job counseling, how to do what we call career exploration discovery, the whole idea of how to find a job. And again, you can see a lot of embedded resources. We found a number of great sites with great videos about different jobs that we put in here. And so how to even do job development remotely and things like that. So that's that product. The next one is one I believe, yes, this is one I wrote. This is the technology one. I did a deep dive on how do you help people use technology for remote services. And so we did a real kind of deep dive on sort of this gets into the nuts and bolts of what technology do people have? How do you teach them how to use technology? What do you use for remote services? All this kind of stuff. And then at the end here, we have a bunch of different, how to stay safe online. I would say that we've emphasized that a lot. And a lot of what we found in terms of staying safe online is some folks have put together some wonderful online resources for people with disabilities about staying safe online. So, and then we also have this worksheet that can be used for individuals to help figure out what technology they have and how it might be used. And then we took that worksheet, and I'm not going to open it up, but later you'll see it. It's down at the bottom here. We actually created it as a fill-in form, which is also on this site. Let's see. So that's number 5. Number 6 here is program management. This was written by my colleague Jesse Canoy, who's based in Missouri, and with my assistance. This is more on how to manage a program during COVID-19, how to manage staff, how to deal with the crisis, how to oversee services, how to think about how you're designing your program during this challenging time. So how to deal with funders and things like that. So this is more of a product really for programs, more so than some of the others. Our next one is about supporting individuals. It's written by Juan Gasper, Jill Eastman, and myself. And this is about individuals who are working. How do we support them in terms of can we provide services remotely, and how can job coaches make sure they stay healthy and things like that. I think among the things that we have found is the fact that a lot of employers really don't want staff on site, job coaches on site. So how do we do this differently? And how do you deal with working with folks in the home in terms of helping out with supports that folks are getting, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of a practical guide on all of those kind of issues. And then this is, so the last two, two products here. This one I really, really like, was written by Mary DiBiase and my assistants. This is about different apps that people can use. This was an interesting one to develop because we learned a lot by developing it. The one thing I would say is what we have discovered is that there are so many apps and pieces of technology that folks can use to help support them on the jobs and life. And I think the one thing that we practically need to do, I say this to families, I say this to individuals, I say this to service providers, is finding those apps that folks can use. And so many apps require almost no reading or are very intuitive. And there's so many that can be so helpful in terms of both, not just employment, but life in general. So this is we think a pretty good practical guide on finding apps, testing them out, how to use them, where to find them, things like that. So that's this guide. And then it's sort of a companion to this one, which was my baby, which is about using technology for remote support. So you might see a little bit of redundancy here with some of these, but that's purposeful. But this one is focused specifically on how do you use technology to support somebody remotely, and also to help them manage their day-to-day tasks. So there's some general discussion about using technology and things like that. And then we have a specific area about using technology to job coach remotely. Remote job coaching is something that has merged over the past few years. But obviously with COVID-19, it has taken off. We have so much to learn about this and using technology to job coach remotely, but it can be such a practical strategy for not only because it allows job coaches during a pandemic to be on site in some form through video or through texting or whatever it might be, but it allows job coaches, their physical presence, frankly, can be intrusive on a job. So if they can do some of this work remotely without having to be at the job site with the individual, that's a win-win. Plus, it's a more efficient use of resources. So this is a growing area. It was growing, as I said, before the pandemic, but it's really going to be interesting to see how this evolves because I think we're learning a lot here. So that's this piece. And then we also have a bunch of information here about using technology for task management and effective job performance, using video modeling, which is a very hot area about using video in terms of people using video to basically help them manage tasks, and then also use of apps. So this is, again, companion to that other piece I talked about, and things like that. So so we think that, this is a good example of, as I said earlier, about areas that we're really learning a lot about in a hurry that will really have long-term benefit to all of us. And then also on the page, the last item on this page is we have a resource list, which you can download. I'm not going to download it, but it's a curated list of resources that are available in terms of and it's a national list. We also have one for Massachusetts, which is on our Employment First Massachusetts site, but it's categorized as different things. So you might just even find that a very useful thing to download if you're looking for resources and everything from technology to plain language information on COVID-19 to employment and day services, how to sort of deliver those, job exploration, et cetera, et cetera. So we think we've done a pretty good job of putting that together, how to get financial supports and assistance, benefits counseling, things like that. Any questions at this point? I'm going to go back to my slides here. I want to share a couple other things. Okay. Let me keep moving then. So in addition to these items, we have several that are coming soon. So I'm going to give you a preview of those. Excuse me. Take a sip of water from my ARC cup here. So these are new ones that are coming up, hopefully out in the next, as I said, next week or two. One is participation of people with disabilities in online groups and activities. This is one that I wrote. It sort of came out of some other publications we were creating, but there was just really a need, we felt, for something that really is practical about how can people with disabilities participate in online groups? How can they do this in terms of not only day and employment services, but just in general. If they want to be part of a recreation group online or an advocacy group online or just a hobby or, part of a knitting group, all sorts of different things. So we put this guide together, and it's, so that's one of the things that's upcoming. It's just being finalized right now. The formatting is being finalized. Hopefully be able to post that this week. Another one that is done, we're doing the final touches on it, is this one on employer engagement and job development. That should hopefully be up in the next day or two as well. But really, this is sort of the, how do you engage employers during this time? How do you find jobs during this time? And part of it is sort of dealing with an economy that is not so great, but also the fact that you can no longer really meet with employers in person. One thing we keep pushing with service providers and individuals is people need to get really good at being interviewed online and by phone, because the in-person interviews are not really a reality right now. So, but a lot of other practical things there about sort of how to deal. Also, I would say the other message we have with this piece is that the labor market is changing, and it's really important that we all recognize that and understand where the jobs are versus where they were. So, so a third one is virtual community life engagement. This is a piece about community life engagement, sort of what you do when you're not working. And so this was written by my colleague, Jen Selesky. And so this is how you engage in those activities online, sort of companion to that virtual piece online activities that I just mentioned. And then one more is community-based day services during the pandemic. And that's not formatted yet, it's actually being copy edited, but community-based day services, as you might be aware, are the non-employment services in Massachusetts for folks. So we put that together and written that, and that should be out hopefully within the next week or two. So we also put together a series of products for individuals that are in process. A couple of them are formatted, a couple are not. They should be out, as I said, within the next 2 weeks. So these are specifically written for individuals, and we had some self-advocates help us with these and edit these. And so they are very written in clear language that we hopefully is highly accessible to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who have some literacy skills. But one is about, you can see sort of some similar themes here, using technology for remote services, so how they can use technology to get services remotely. Another one on keeping their focus on employment during COVID-19. So this is about how, and I think our message here, as well as that other piece I just shared about employer engagement, is just because the economy isn't great does not mean there are not jobs out there, and that we need to maintain a focus on employment, even during this challenging time. We just can't abandon that. So, but this is, discusses that. A third one that's sort of similar to the product, which is still being copy edited, is what is COVID-19 and why are so many people not working? So that's more for folks who are currently out of work. Why people are out of work? Why is COVID-19? What is that? Why is COVID-19 causing so many people to be out of work? And then some practical ideas about what to do while you're out of work. And then a last one on working during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is also in the process of being copy edited, so we don't have it formatted yet. But that is about sort of the companion to those other pieces that I said. This is about, okay, what does it mean to work now? The precautions you need to take and things like that. So that's everything we produced for this project. I welcome questions, comments, feedback, general thoughts. So I know I covered a lot, but I would hope that, as much as anything, you can sort of take a look at what we've produced so far and take a look at these products, use them, share them, let us know what you think about them, let us know what else you might be useful. So I'll pause here. I see something in the chat.
Yeah, Tracy just said, you've been very busy.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. Yeah, we
very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. We got a lot out in a hurry. It's been quite the obsession. That's the only way to do this. Oh yes, thank you.
Feel free to unmute yourself too if you want to ask David a question.
Okay, now the individual products aren't available yet. I would guess, so the process we go, we're waiting for the last two to get copy edited, and then they have to get formatted, which we do very quickly. Then our last step in the process is we're very focused on making sure all products are accessible, so then we have to have them processed for accessibility. And so, but hopefully within, I'd say next week. If we're really lucky, maybe by the end of next week we'll get them up, but we'll make sure Kerry knows. So Johan, we're asking about schools. Yeah, some of these work for schools as well. We've been actually pushing them through our transition folks. We have tossed around the idea, yeah, definitely like the employer engagement ones, and some of the how to provide services remotely and things like that. They're absolutely useful for schools. I would say that we have talked about doing one specifically for transition in schools. We kind of decided to wait a little bit to see how some of that plays out in terms of schools for the fall. The other thing that I think is, they definitely are useful for schools. I think the other thing we are probably going to do longer term with some of these is we're probably going to repurpose some of them once COVID-19 ends, which hopefully will be someday soon. And because some of them are just going to be useful for practical long-term, like remote services are not going away. Use of technology is not going to go away. So we'll probably rebrand them, do some slight changes in wording at some point. So.
Hello.
And somebody
Oh, hi, Jarrett. Yeah, Jarrett just raised his hand. Would you like to ask a question, Jarrett? You're on mute, Jarrett. I'm going to unmute you, okay? No, wasn't able to do that. Can you mute yourself, Jarrett?
I do not have a question today.
Oh, you don't. Okay. All righty. Okay. All right. That's okay.
I have a question, not a question, sort of a comment. I noticed that when I was looking at the resources when they first came out, there's a link to something on Think College. There's some tip sheets that have helpful advice about the school, that answers a school question. And it's linked through your site. It's in Think College.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of the site, actually. Yeah. Thank you for pointing
that
out.
Actually can give information about school.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you. I'm actually just looking up. So, why is that not? That's odd. I'm trying to get to our website here so I can figure out where, because I think we still have a link on our website where you can sign up for your, the question was about where do we sign up for our, I'd say the best way to find out about what's coming out is a couple ways. First off, you can subscribe to any of our social media. So on Facebook or Twitter, we tend to put stuff out there. Is one way. Also on our website, here it is. Okay, why is our site's not coming up? It never fails, like things go down just when you're like, let me try. Okay. Our site isn't coming up. It must be down, of course. If you go to our main website, you can also sign up, which is communityinclusion.org. You can sign up for our email. I've never known the site to be down, but of course, when I want to show it to everybody, of course, it goes down. So, never seen.
When you publish a new product, are they going to be accessible through the same link where the current products are?
Yeah, everything will be. Yeah, we're leaving everything on that page.
Okay, because then I want to make sure I include it in my website because I have your links on my website, so I want to make sure it's my website's up to date.
Okay. Okay. So, there it kind of just came up. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I finally found it. It just took a second. Okay, so if you want to get on our main email list, and we put out everything, it says join the ICI email list on our main page, communityinclusion.org. So if you put your email in here, you can get all of our alerts plus our socials up here, as you can see, our Twitter feed. So that's the best place to do it. And this site's about to be relaunched, so it's going to be updated. But yeah, that's the best way to keep up to date is by getting on our email list on our main page.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have any products for people with sensory disabilities as well as intellectual and developmental? In other words, a combination of people who fall under that global. With the intellectual and learning disabilities or deaf with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
So we have not. So, okay. Yep. So the products we've created, we've been somewhat intentional, with a little bit of debate, that we've just used the word disability in them. So they're intended to be general, although some of them were obviously with the folks we had in mind were folks with intellectual developmental disabilities. We haven't specifically addressed those issues. I think the stuff that we've created is hopefully useful. That can be useful in some way for folks with with those with sensory disabilities as well as developmental disabilities. But I will say that we haven't done anything specific to that on that, and I'm not sure we would we would be going that route. I would say if you're looking for resources, hopefully there's some out there that if you're really looking for some practical. I don't know what Kerry, your thoughts on that are, in terms of other resources on that, if there's anything.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not familiar with any in terms of, specific towards the autism resources where, I'm sure they do talk about sensory issues and that sort of thing, but yeah, I think, I kind of agree with David that, these publications are beautifully done with universal design, so you can apply it to a number of people.
I would say that, I know that some of the different organizations involved with autism have put a lot of very good stuff out. I think one issue that's actually come up is the sensitivity of people to wearing masks. It's been a really interesting issue as sort of that's evolved because some people just, because of the nature of disability, cannot wear a mask, and how to deal with that. So I know that's been something that some groups have been dealing with and providing guidance on. So I know in terms of, and obviously we're focused on workplaces about how do you accommodate for that, how do you deal with that. So it's definitely been something that's been evolving. So.
Great, thank you.
I think also, I think the other thing we had some discussion about, I'd like to think some of these are really helpful for families, but whether there's at some point a need to sort of do something that's even specific for families or even something that sort of just summarizes what we've got that's specific to families. So I'm not sure we're there yet, but if there's stuff that you feel like it would be really useful for family members specifically, we'd love your feedback. So. Part of the challenge, obviously, that we're all dealing with this is such an evolving situation. So,
yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what else the lessons that are going to be learned as we go through this this phase of the reopening and day and employment programs, trying to get back together and what that's all going to look like. So, anyways, any other questions? I think we're good. So, David, I really appreciate all these resources. They're fantastic and great information.
I'm just going to throw my email back in if you didn't grab it earlier. It's david.hoff@umb.edu. I just put it in the chat. So, welcome your feedback. And we'll be doing announcements as we add no products. We'll definitely be doing announcements. Probably got something going out the next time we post new stuff. So.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all for coming today. And you'll get a PDF of the presentation today as well. So you'll have all the information. So I hope you go visit the ICI website. And I know I'm planning on downloading a few of them and sharing it with the Mass Transition Facebook group. So anyways, thanks so much, David,
You're welcome.
for coming on today. Next Tuesday, by the way, we're going to be talking about transition, and I have Victor Hernandez from the Department of Developmental Services as my guest. So hope you can join us again. All righty. Well, thank you all. Everybody have a great day.
Yeah, take care, everybody.